The Edge crew have arrived at Microsoft HQ to find out a little bit more about the City Next project. Let's go. Well, I am with Warren Hero, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft. Is that your real surname?
All I can say is I aspire, first of all. And yes, it is my real surname. So my forebears were Herero out of Namibia. And when they migrated south, they dropped an RE and it became Hero.
Wow, fabulous. Okay, now on to the techie stuff. So tell me more about City Next.
Yeah, so City Next, even before we get to City Next, one of the central things that we realize as organizations is that people work for you because of the fact that you can make an impact. So as Microsoft, one of the things that we believe is the fact that we work together to change people's lives. And from that came this idea to look at City Next and to look at cities as a competitive platform for a couple of reasons. Until 2050, we're going to add about 2.7 billion people to cities. So our cities are just getting larger. And because they're getting larger, they become more complex, they consume more resources. Plus the fact that in terms of people living in cities, at the end of the day, a city should be about the people that exist there. People want to be healthy, they want to be educated, and they want to live in modern and safer cities. So City Next is about trying to make cities more modern, to make them safer, and to create an environment where people can thrive, and from an economic point of view, to increase the impact on a country economically as well.
Tell me a little bit more about big data and how it will facilitate something like City Next.
The interesting thing is that as I'm standing here as a person, I'm generating a whole lot of data. I have this wearable that I wear, and it tells me a lot of things about my energy, how many steps I take, even my heart rate. So as a person, I generate a whole lot of data. Now think about the fact that in Gauteng, province that we're in, there's about 11 million people. Each of those 11 million people, and most of them have about 2 cell phones, generate data. Right? Even when you drive your car, you know that your car generates at least about a gigabyte's worth of data for every hour you drive. So all of that data really collects and it becomes a huge amount of data, and that's what it means. Big data, it just means that if you look at history, the data that we are generating today far exceeds the data that we've generated until about 1960. But part of what we have to do with that data, it looks like gobbledygook. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we need to find a way to look at that data and look at the data intelligently. Because once we look at the data, we can get insight. And when we have insight, we can then start to change the way we behave. We can start to maybe even change our environment. And then being able to allow businesses as well as governments to make decisions about strategic infrastructure and about how to improve the economic livelihood in a city.
Well, now you're scratching the surface of my next question, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think this means for Africa and South Africa?
Yes. The interesting thing for us, because our lives are with us in our mobile phones, one of the things that we do in Africa, and I mean, interestingly, a couple of the ministers mentioned it during the State of the Nation address, is the ability to have apps on your phone. And those apps on your phone gives you access to services, right? So you bring government to yourself. Don't treat government like a vending machine, put in one kick machine and then something drops out. But we become engaged in government. I think that's one of the unique opportunities that we have as Africans, because there's still this degree of social involvement, social engagement. So that's the one aspect. And one of the things that we can do, from your Facebook page, if you allow us, from other technology, is to actually listen to that. They call it social listening. So because we listen, we can take that information out and we can show government where some of the areas are to improve, where some of the areas are that they need to look at in order to deliver services that will matter to citizens. So that dialogue between citizens and government is I think, a beautiful thing. And the more engaged we become, the more we can ensure that our cities become more livable for us.
So clearly all the social listening also leads to a lot of success stories and case studies for you together.
Yes.
Tell me more about some of those.
Some of the interesting case studies, and one of the first ones would be in Cape Town, and we have Devon, and Devon will speak about what are some of the impact that we can have from transportation and the integration of transportation. And then the other aspect then would be in terms of the Microsoft App Factory. One of the things that we have done with young aspiring developers with our development experience team is educate them so they can understand app development and actually code and develop apps. They then sit in the environment and learn how to develop those apps, because you have the knowledge, but you then have to take the knowledge and apply the knowledge. And in this environment, they learn the application of knowledge. A lot of these people get recruited out of the app factory to then do development apps for everybody else. But people that previously didn't have access to the capacity to develop apps can develop apps within this environment. So for instance, the voting app for the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, was developed in the app factory by these young people. And 2 or 3 of them have started their own businesses as well.
Fantastic, Warren. I could listen to you talk all day. You're so passionate about what you do, and you have just made me fall in love all over again with how technology and content can go out there and make a difference in your city. I'm with Devin de Vries, who is the CEO and co-founder of Where Is My Transport. Now, Devin, you've come quite a long way with Microsoft. Tell me a little bit about how your journey got started.
Well, yeah, we started off in 2007, and it all kicked off with an honors thesis. And we set out with the idea of solving a real-world problem utilizing technology. And we decided to tackle the problem of public transport. And yeah, long story short, it went very well, and we entered our project into the Microsoft Imagine Cup, where we won the national competition, and then we went on to the world finals, and yeah, we did quite well in a couple of categories there, and from there we moved on to founding a startup.
Fabulous, which is Where's My Transport, and further to that, you've now also developed an app called Find My Way.
Correct.
Tell me more.
So Find My Way is a representation of our vision as we started off back in 2007. I mean, what we really wanted to do was allow people to move from A to B. In many ways, when people move from a point to another point, they don't think of it as a series of 21 questions. Which bus, which train, which stop? Really, they just go, I want to get there, tell me how, And bus, we wanted to sort of demystify public transport. Why is it so complicated? It should be something that's relatively simple to use. And that's really where we started off. Naively, we thought that public transport was already relatively formalized. There were systems we could tap into, but we were sorely wrong. And so that actually led us on a long journey. I mean, it's been 7 years now. And we started off by building out a lot of these transit tools to allow us to digitize data in an environment where traditionally the information is highly disseminate, and the systems are very disparate in their nature. There's a tracking system, a scheduling system, everything's very separated. So we need to bring it all together, and ultimately Find My Way is the culmination of the last several years worth of work, and it illustrates and answers to that original founding question, which was, I want to get from A to B, tell me how.
Tell me more about the actual cities that you're covering.
Okay, so we started off by launching in Cape Town back in October of last year, 2014. And since then, we've now launched Find My Way across all of the various mobile platforms. So you can download it on Windows Phone, iPhone, Android, and there's also a mobile website that people can use. And we've also created a Java app so that your really simple feature phones can also have access to the services. The cities that are now supported, it's Cape Town, George, Port Elizabeth, East London, Durban, Johannesburg, and Pretoria. And so, we're trying to blanket South Africa, and we're also working quite fervently on trying to pull in paratransport or informal transport, so the minibus taxis, your tuk-tuks, things that don't necessarily run on a schedule. So that's a very interesting area of work, and yeah, we'll see where things lead from here.
So from the cities to South Africa, and then there's Africa as a continent, do you see this branching out?
A huge part of the uniqueness in the space that we operate in is the fact that we are working with highly unstructured data. And so having invested the last 5 years into building out the tools that allow us to digitize data within an environment like South Africa, those tools allow us to also move out into other emerging regions of the globe, other places where data is reasonably unstructured. So, Africa, South America, South Asia, all areas of great interest to us.
Well, salute to techies like Devin who help us find our way with things like Find My Way. But for now, we are going to be looking at high altitude balloons and what we can learn from them. First though, over to Hypertext Africa.